and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right. Agenda approval. Anybody have anything they need to add to the agenda?
I
Okay.
move we accept the agenda as presented.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Announcements. The public participation policy applies to all selectmen's meetings. A copy of it is on the back of each agenda posted in this meeting room and on our website. All right, next up. We'd like to take just a second here, if you guys don't mind, and give a little bit of thanks to one of our employees that had just retired recently. Matt, if you want to come up for a minute, we'd like to. This is in recognition of 14 years of dedication and faithful service to the town of Alton.
Yeah. I am already. Thank
You turn around and also get everybody huddled around. You know? Everybody smile now. Oh, here we go. Always gonna take one. I'm gonna come in with you guys. Yeah.
This is really just going for kind of banana.
Yeah.
We'll get out of the way. All right. Thank you. All righty. Thanks again. Excuse me, Jesus. All right, public input. Any out and about? All right, seeing none. Toby Reynolds, draft Route 11 corridor study. Come on up, sir. I have copies and that would be fantastic.
Sure.
That's the hardest thing I've ever tried to read on the internet.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
This is a copy of the.
a lot of info there.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's hard to.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know. Yeah, I poked through, but it's my eyeballs start hurting. I read it on my phone screen. Seriously.
This is a summary.
Patty, thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a quick introduction. My name's Toby Reynolds. I'm the project manager for this planning study. With me tonight is Hans Weber. He's with our roadway design section. I'm going to give a quick introduction and Hans is going to do kind of the more technical part of the presentation. And we're going to be following this handout here that I gave out to you just for reference. If you want to make notes or whatever, just gives us something to follow so we don't get too wordy also. So this, what we wanted to do is present the Alton Guilford Route 11 planning study to the town. We're doing the same thing to the town of Guilford December 14th. And then our plan is to present this as a open meeting that the DOT will organize for anybody that wants to come. But we wanted to get input from the towns first before we did that. The limit of the study is from Minge Cove Road on Route 11 to Scenic Drive, which is where Elacoya State Park is. Some of you may recall there was a project back in the 90s that they were considering a bypass of this section that would connect the two higher speed segments of Route 11. That study continued until about 2009. And it was, at that time, it was removed from the state's 10-year transportation plan for many reasons, mostly of which were the impacts to private property, the impacts to environmental resources, and the cost. So after that was eliminated from the state's 10-year transportation plan in 2009, in 2015, the Lakes Region Planning Commission submitted an application for improvements to this section of Route 11. Basically on the existing alignment, what can we do to make this road better as it stands? That's what created this study. That application to the state's 10-year transportation plan resulted in this study being funded. So this study started in 2001. The state hired a engineering consultant, which you can see on the front of the report here, was GM2 Associates and Weston and Sampson. They were hired to do all the research, gather the data, consolidate the report. Also in October 2021, we began our first of 4 corridor advisory committee meetings. And what we did is we took representatives from Alton, Guilford, Laconia, in the Lakes Region Planning Commission, so that we could kind of make sure that we were on the right track with the planning study, go over kind of the big picture items with them, and make sure that we weren't missing anything from a local standpoint. From the town of Alton, we had Reuben Wentworth, Russ Wilder, and Drew Carter on the committee. The outcome of the study is what we hope it will be used for. It will be used to inform future projects. So Lakes Region Planning Commission can use this study to evaluate what projects might be feasible based on the impacts that are associated with each segment of this roadway. As you know, there's a lot of tight sections in here. And put forward projects for consideration into future 10-year plans. So that's the outcome that we hope to achieve from this study. So I'm going to let Hans now. What are we on, like slide 4? Sorry, I'm not really
That's all right.
good
That's
at
all right.
that. But Hans is going to go through a little bit more detail in the study, and we'd love to take input now, or if you have anything later that you think of, you can give me a call or message me as well.
All right, so I'll probably start us off on slide 5. The aerial overview. So Toby already explained the limits. I think you guys are familiar with the road. So we won't really talk too much about that, but I'll highlight now the full project limits are circled in red, but circled in yellow on either end. That'd be the Elacoya State Park or Scenic Drive intersection. And then down on the Alton side of things would be Cherry Valley Road 11A intersection. So we're going to talk a little bit about those intersections in particular as we go through the slides. Existing conditions, the road out there today is posted for 40 miles per hour. There is a seasonal down posting for 35 miles per hour around the Ames Farm area. Lane width and shoulder width vary. This is an older road that has sort of grown up over the years. So we measured about 10.5 to 12 feet, yellow line to white line, depending on where you are. And it's kind of similarly 1/2 foot to 2 foot of the shoulder available, depending on where you are. Right of way width laid out at 66 feet wide. So that's 33 feet to either side of the center line rather. And then pretty decent crash history for this section of road, probably due to the horizontal geometry, some of the vertical geometry, definitely a little windy, and people are not always going 40 miles an hour. Working with GM2, they kind of broke up their recommendations into 2 broad categories, short-term improvements and long-term improvements. So long-term improvements end up being those projects that Toby mentioned, things that could be scheduled to be full projects later down the road. But short-term improvements that they wanted to suggest that could help with safety concerns in the meantime are kind of listed in this slide 7. there's a lot of drives, lots of roads. We noticed out there, not every side road has stop bars, not every side road has stop signs, not every side road is clearly marked with a road sign. So a lot of these improvements kind of tie into that. So improved pavement marking, maybe trimming back vegetation or otherwise removing structures that are within the roadway right away near these intersections in order to improve sight distance as people are trying to turn on to New Hampshire 11 from a side road. And then maybe even providing lighting at key intersections. But again, the crash history shows that time of day wasn't necessarily a factor. So maybe these other considerations would be looked at first. But moving on to long-term improvements, kind of two categories there. There's corridor widening out there today. As I already mentioned, we have kind of the variable width, but generally pretty narrow. So we're looking to maybe get a consistent typical that offers a little bit more shoulder width. And then for intersection configuration changes, looking at the intersections with Scenic Drive at Elacoya State Park and then Cherry Valley Road 11A. So starting with corridor widening feasibility, you guys have the draft planning study. If you want to look at page 39 for kind of a fold out map, you'll find it's a little easier to look at than slide 9 in the handout. The goal is to try and widen as much of the roadway as possible. Toby touched on this a little bit, but back in the 60s, the section of New Hampshire 11 to either side of the project was actually widened to about a 1210 typical. And then it really necks down into this narrow middle section. All right, is that about page 39?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the one with the green, yellow and red along the
Yes.
highway.
Perfect. So recognizing that there's these larger shoulder sections to either side of the project area, the hope would be maybe we can get something a little bit more like an 11.5 typical through the project limits on New Hampshire 11. Looking into how feasible that is, that's kind of what that graphic in front of you is supposed to show. We broke down the sections into widening feasible with challenges, and widening not feasible. Even in the areas that are widening feasible with challenges, so those are pictured in yellow, we do have some small red circles highlighting particular instances that could be difficult, be considerations for the project. But at large, these are sections that were broken out to reflect how feasible a widening project could be. Additional pedestrian and bicycle accommodations could be implemented throughout the corridor as well. So that might just be pavement markings, signage, those sort of improvements. They could all be considered through maybe their own project or bundled into other projects down the line. Ames Farm area, that's definitely the one section that's very, very tight with the rock wall. Some of those buildings are pretty close to the roadway, and we recognize there's a historic significance there. So might be difficult there, but everywhere else we think could potentially be improved upon. And if we're getting into the roadway widening as well, there's a chance that we'd look at things like the vertical curves. There's a few humpy sections of the road that we might be able to flatten out in order to improve visibility and general safety from a driving standpoint.
Technical term. Humpy.
Yeah. Moving on from the widening, or regardless of the corridor widening, bookending the corridor, come in with those 1210 sections on either side into those intersections that I've mentioned a couple times now. We've talked about bookending the corridor with intersection improvements at those two locations in order to introduce the concept to the drivers that they're entering into a section of roadway that's a little different than what they were just driving. So first of the intersections, I won't spend too long on this because it is on the Guilford end of things, but that would be the Scenic Drive intersection by Elacoya State Park. So if you look at slides 11 and 12 and 13, I guess in the handout, slide 11 shows an aerial of the existing intersection. There are some issues that we've identified. The horizontal and vertical curve coming from the west, heading east down the hill, cause people to kind of enter into the bottom a little faster than we'd like. And it's especially a bit of a conflict today where larger recreational vehicles or just any sort of day use users are trying to get into Elacoya State Park. That first entrance, if you come from the west, is two directional. And then on the eastern leg, there's two one-way spurs for that intersection. So in general, we think this area is a little complicated, definitely a product of the time it was built and maintaining the infrastructure that was there at the time. So we're looking to maybe do some improvements there. Two alternatives that we've looked at just kind of in a 2D sense would be slides 12, which would be a roundabout alternative that shifts the point of the intersection further to the east in order to make sure people come down that hill from the west and have a little bit more time to see what's in front of them. And then a roundabout would serve to slow down traffic entering the area, should process traffic pretty well for all three legs of that intersection. And it would act as that bookended feature in order to introduce people to a new section of the roadway as they proceed east towards Ames Farm and into Alton. Second option that we've kind of looked at would be just a T intersection. So consolidating the different legs of the existing intersection into one location that's in the middle of that tangent section between those horizontal curves. We think that would give drivers a little bit more time to react as they come down that hill. We could also look into potentially adding a little bit of a widened section. And so left turners are not blocking vehicles that needed to go around it, but it's all pretty preliminary at this time.
And there are foldouts in the handout that I gave you that have a little bit bigger picture of those.
We'll move into the Alton side of things, New Hampshire 11A intersection or Cherry Valley Road. The aerial that you'll see pictured a few different places might not have the West Alton Marina Drive. Google hadn't updated their imagery yet. So we sort of sketched it on there in those layouts. At this location, there's a hill kind of coming from the east, so down the hill as you leave Alton, and fair amount of left turn vehicles trying to turn onto Cherry Valley Road. The issue today is people coming down that hill at speed, then need to try and slip to the right if they're continuing through on New Hampshire 11. And that has caused some conflict, especially if there's times of inclement weather during the winter, trying to slow down.
Happening there a lot now too, is that road across the street's paved.
Yeah.
And people are coming down that hill and they don't see the stop sign and they're like, oh, road keeps going, and they just
Oh.
send it across the intersection.
Yeah.
Good feedback.
Yeah, hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Looking at this intersection, a westbound left turn warrant was met for movements on New Hampshire 11, turning left onto 11A. So that's something we considered when we looked into the next two alternatives. So we've got pictured on slides 15 and 16, or otherwise in the draft planning study. Two different alternatives would be, again, a roundabout. This one would be a four-legged roundabout in order to incorporate that drive to the West Alton Marina. It would kind of go in tandem with the Elacoya entrance as far as bookending the corridor. Worth noting, the project limits for this corridor study are actually a little bit east of Cherry Valley Road. We said about Minge Cove Road. So there would be some improvements that continued to
That went up further. The
Exactly.
Alton side, get that S turn through there where it comes out of the double lane.
Yep. So roundabout, we think 2D, plopping it on there, pretty concept level at this stage, but it
Yep.
seems possible. Something that we would need to flesh out more. And then the other option would just be adding a turn lane in that westbound direction in order to make sure that there's less conflict for people trying to continue through past them. It wouldn't necessarily solve what you were talking about, although we did explore out there today. There's that kind of wide dirt area
Right.
on Cherry Valley Road as it
Yeah,
intersects. So if we could formalize that intersection a little bit more, so it's not as spread out, maybe that would encourage people to recognize it as a four-way stop, or not a four-way stop, but a stop condition from.
Right.
Definitely.
Hampshire
Yeah, because
11A.
the trees, the way the trees come in there, it kind of narrow. You don't really see it until it's
Until you're
too
there.
late.
Gotcha.
Right there, exactly.
Even, I mean, I think as far as that end of it goes, I think even some signs back up towards the other side saying, hey, be prepared to stop. You gotta stop.
Intersection
here,"
ahead.
would
Yep.
probably help out.
Would help immensely.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
I got it.
So looking at a high level cost estimate, we have an internal estimating process where we can try and get an idea of what these projects might cost. So we've broken out the corridor widening into 4 different sections. Section 1 from Scenic Drive to Ames Farm, segment 2 Riley Road to Smith Point Road, section 3 Smith Point Road to West Alton Fire Station, and then section 4 from the fire station to Minge Cove Road. And we've thrown down just some numbers there about what we might be able to program if these projects were something we wanted to pursue down the line. And then beyond that would be the Scenic Drive intersection, both the roundabout and the T reconfiguration, and then the New Hampshire 11A intersection, a roundabout, and then the turn lane approach. Some estimates for what we think those might cost. And I mentioned earlier, just general pedestrian and bicycle accommodation improvements that could be facilitated through the corridor. That would could be its own project. So we broke out what that cost would be for do a bit of a safety study and propose improvements for that.
And few of those areas will be a challenge for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with how narrow they are today and
Especially at Ames Farm.
yeah. So project schedule, Toby mentioned this already. We are going to be approaching the town of Guilford, their select board on December 14th. And then we're looking at sometime maybe late January of winter 2023 in order to have a public informational that the NHDOT would host, and everyone would be invited to hear a lot of the same information. But
Right.
so at this point, we'd like to open up for question and comment. Some of the comments we've received so far have been great. So thank you. Or I can turn it back over to Toby.
Well, I think it's, no, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it's a project well overdue. But I noticed on both ends. When the state addressed those areas, basically did bypasses. Now, I see you got some tough areas here. You know, I drive that road a lot. I really looked at doing any kind of bypass in the area, in certain sections.
So not in certain sections, back, like I said, back in the nineties, late nineties, early 2000, there was quite a bit of work done to explore what a bypass might look like. I believe it came off kind of the S curve. You go past Minge Cove, came off that S curve, went up to, away from the lake or the up Cherry Valley Road, and then behind many of the residences that are along Route 11. There was a couple of different alignments that were explored at that time. And the result of all of that was that, the state basically couldn't afford it. The impacts were too great. And so that's why it was abandoned.
I think there's too many houses up in there. If they had to start buying all the properties up, you'd be broke before you got started.
And there's more now than there was.
It was in
than
the
there was
90s,
then.
yeah.
We talked a lot about this as a committee. There was a lot of discussion about, the bypass. We know that topic's going to come up when we present in Guilford and when we present to the public, because it makes sense, right? You connect the two high-speed facilities with another high-speed facility, and then this becomes more of a local road, which it kind of feels like for the most part. But this section is extremely difficult to bypass. The topography is very tough. And so in the meantime, maybe sometime in the future that can be explored further. But in the meantime, I think we all realize that this segment of road needs attention. And so that's what this study was trying to do, is provide some framework to get this segment improved in the meantime. Good
You got a
question.
lot of rises and super elevated corners in through there that makes it hard to see and see where you're going when you're coming through that section. I think you're right. That's the most technical section that you got to, because most of it on both ends of that are pretty well opened up. Once you get past Alacoya State Park and
Exactly.
get to the other end of it, it opens up.
It's got that
But
congested
that's
area.
but the other flip side to that is, your easement that the state has there is probably gonna be kind of constricted where all those houses are right there. You can't really move
Yeah, can,
Mhm.
one way or the other. You kind of,
because some of them are pretty close to the highway.
yeah,
I gotta
you
slow
got some
down.
of those houses that are probably, if you're probably in the states right away, but what are you gonna do? Move a house?
There's a few of them.
Some of those red circles.
Yeah,
are-
exactly. That's what I
That's what I
figured
was
you
gonna
had
ask
there
you.
was houses that were in the,
Few of them that's
They're
10
right
feet
there.
off.
yeah, and that's a fight you probably don't wanna.
It's challenging.
Yeah,
That's
it
for
very
sure,
much is.
especially from Riley Road to Ames Farm. That
Yeah.
there's,
Yes.
the houses
got-
sit way up on one
Then you got
side,
lake.
and sit down next to the lake on the other,
Yeah.
and any widening at all. And you're potentially impacting the buildings,
Yeah,
not
right.
just the land.
Right,
And
you're changing the whole topography of the whole place.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Retaining walls on one side and steep driveways on that side. And like you said, you got the properties on the lakeside.
Right.
Not much room there to widen.
I mean, the sad fact of it is we don't make land anymore. And it's not like you kind of gotta work with what you got.
Yeah.
To make it as best as you can. But I think you guys are onto something here for sure.
I definitely want to say this is a fantastic job you've done on this study.
Yep.
Thanks.
The input that you have here and the scale of how much you've put into this is amazing. I really, in my opinion, I like the ideas of the on a scenic drive intersection reconfiguration. I think that might help with the impact.
Yeah.
And I like the 11A intersection also the reconfiguration of that. I'm not sure about personally about roundabouts,
Yeah, that
but
was-
Yeah, I was thinking the
I
same
I
thing.
kind of like the idea of the reconfigurations. Because I think that can be just as effective
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
done
nothing would-
properly.
Nothing would make me feel any better is to see you start right here at the circle and go right around town somewhere. That'd be great. But
Yeah.
we know that's not gonna
Overpass.
happen. Yeah, an overpass.
Overpass,
Make a
right
big
over.
bridge.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we include multiple options too, because we know that, there'll be further discussion, further studies about what might be appropriate. We just wanted to make sure we showed a couple that we know would work.
Well, that's the thing. You got options. It's not just like, this is what's gonna happen. This is how it's gonna work. You got something that we can sit there and look at and say, well, this would work here, but maybe not here somewhat, you know?
The nice thing about the roundabout, just to make a plug for that, is that it does, like the traffic that's coming into this segment, it'll slow them down to
Have to slow down.
20,
Have to.
25 miles an hour. It's not like, they come off the 60, 55 miles an hour, going 65 miles an hour. And then they're still going 50 as they go through
You
this
either
segment.
slow down or your insurance company buys a roundabout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's one advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the only-
Their advantage.
They do, they do.
Yeah, they
Absolutely, I agree.
do.
no, they're harder to plow
Yes,
Harder to
absolutely.
maintain, yeah.
and they just, I mean, at least they're not cobblestone anymore because they can't get that anymore. So at least they
The one in
start
Meredith.
concreting them. Because it was a
Tearing up the cobblestone.
Isn't the
But no, it
one,
was a struggle getting that stone because you won the same stone there a while back and it was obsolete. So then it was,
in 28 in Wolfboro or Ossipee, the one where the old courthouse is.
Yep.
Doesn't that have cobblestone in it?
No.
It's concrete.
Concrete.
It's concrete.
It's
No, they
it's
started doing-
stamped though, right? So
It
Yeah,
might be
it's-
stamped.
yeah, it's fancy. Yeah, it's stamped
That's what it
concrete.
is.
Yeah.
It's stamped.
but no, they got rid of the cobblestone
Yeah.
probably back in,
I
Well,
think
that Meredith,
And
that
it's like-
Meredith
Because it's
roundabout, I
stamped, used to
think was
be.
the first.
used to be, you know.
Meredith and
Kind of-
Plymouth. I
Yeah.
think those are the only
Yeah.
two that have the cobblestone.
That's where the roundabout started was Plymouth, I think, and
Yeah.
then moved up to Meredith and then the cobblestone kind of.
But yeah, no, I mean, they do have their place. I don't know if they're in this place, but you guys done a great job trying to
Sure.
Yeah.
figure this out. This is a hard,
This was tough. I think the biggest challenges are gonna be where you have your red circled areas.
Yeah.
Like you said, the properties that are close to the right of way and
Hmm.
then, of course, the corridor between Ames Farm and Riley Road.
Mhm.
I don't know how you really treat that.
Trying to fix a problem that's hard to fix.
Yeah, so, just one of the things we also talked about at the corridor meetings was that by adding the shoulders, we're giving the bike somewhere to go, because this is, would be a nice route to bike on.
Mhm.
In that, so we talked about, well, if we didn't add shoulders in that difficult section, what would the bikes do, right?
in traffic.
Yeah, and so that is a consideration, maybe with some signage or some pavement markings, we can relay the message to both the motorists and the bikes that you're gonna have to, take the lane for this short section.
Yeah.
But the speeds are not real low as we'd like them to be to do that, but that is one of the things that we've discussed, and it would be discussed further as this project move forward.
Sure.
I think you did a
it's
real good job
Alright.
putting this together.
Well, great. Well, so the town will be getting a notice of that public info meeting that we're going to have also. So, you're obviously welcome to attend that and give comment there as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
We're thinking either end of January, February for that. And we're actually looking at the train station in the bay. I've been talking
Yep.
with Kelly
Yep.
Trudeau
Center
about reserving that. That seems to be the closest
To both areas.
to both that where you can fit a decent amount of people. Yeah. So that's what we're looking into now.
Excuse me.
All right.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
for your time,
Very
guys.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Capital Improvement Program Plan 23 to 28. I believe that's Miss Call. Come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening. And I also have Gabby O'Toole with me tonight as a CIP member representative.
It's like Santa's list.
Yeah.
Keep
Oh,
going.
just keep rolling. It's like,
rolling out, yeah. Sure.
says naughty right here at the top.
And full,
Yeah, and coal.
And coal.
Lots of coal.
gonna need it this one.
Oh. All right, the floor is yours.
All right, so I guess I'm here on behalf of the CIP chairman to assist in representing the 2023-2028 CIP plan. I don't know where you guys really want me to begin. Do you want me to go down through each department? How would you like me to go about this?
Just a quick synopsis of each one would probably be. Oh, yeah,
All right.
a lot of information right here.
Yep.
Yeah, there is.
So this particular CIP plan has now been in the works for the last 6 years. And I feel like the town is really at a good point to where we've managed to get a lot of the higher value equipment sort of to the highway department, also to the fire department. I feel like this plan is definitely a really good, valuable tool to assist in the budgeting process.
And we definitely appreciate the time you guys have put into it, because this is well put together.
Thank you.
It-
And
it
it's
really
very
is.
appreciated.
Well put together.
I mean, I think things are pretty straightforward. I know we do always try to be on the conservative side, to always try to make sure that the tax impact sort of stays, relatively even throughout, that 6-year period. There was one particular year, that we just couldn't really do much with. But we did try our best to try to make it fairly even. Which, is to say that doesn't mean that come that year, things are always fluid. So, that number could change in the next year or two. And that was in 2026.
Some big expenditures.
Mhm.
Yep. So this year, the central school and the high school, so those are up to date. We did have the opportunity, I actually went and met with the superintendent, that I was trying to get to last year, but with him being new and with them not having their own CIP, in place, it was very difficult to, nail everything down. So these are, current numbers, current projects. And we've managed to establish some semi-regular conversations throughout the year. So we were able to manage to do that. The memo that I had provided to you did include some recommendations from the planning board. They also were some comments that were made by the public when we had our public hearing on November 15th. Things that they would like to have into consideration when it comes to replacing equipment. They thought that equipment should be based on, hours of use. To, do a visible inspection of the equipment, to provide like the general condition of it.
And mileage.
Mileage, and to also look into like,
Sorry, no, I think the thing with the vehicles and stuff nowadays is we're getting into getting into things where emissions and stuff is coming into play. And like everybody's saying, I think even with like fire equipment now, the emissions and stuff like because most of our fire trucks and our big trucks are all diesel engines, and the emissions and stuff on those things are so expensive to maintain. It's almost better to stay inside a warranty with that stuff, or you're gonna, half the time, I don't know if you could afford, Pat and Scott are here. Some of that stuff's in upwards of $10,000-15,000 to buy a filter for a DEF system or something like that. So
right,
some of that stuff's real expensive. So staying within, I think what these guys are trying to do is stay within a warranty phase of this stuff. So you don't have to
which is understandable.
Right.
Which is, yeah, it's,
Understandable.
you're gonna end up getting into the more technical everything gets, the more it's gonna cost to fix it.
Yeah,
Right.
Everything.
You know what I mean? So it's everything's computerized. You can't, you gotta send all these guys to school to pull the tire off to reset the tire pressure in them, you know, it's not
Yeah.
the way it used to be when you could just go in there and go at it. It's coming into a different world we're living in. But yeah, I mean, I understand it.
I think we can still keep an eye.
Oh, absolutely.
Keep an
No,
eye on the actual.
yeah, no, no, absolutely,
The actual
absolutely.
hours of each machine
Yeah,
and actually evaluate and look at that.
yeah, no, I
I
agree.
mean, just keep that into consideration. I think.
But when
it's
you
still a good
start
idea.
getting into a piece of equipment around 10,000 hours, 8 to 10,000 hours, it's time to start going.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in,
Of course.
we're starting to get into the area where we need to either think about replacing this or
Yeah.
think about upping the maintenance line so we can afford to fix them.
And also what is important is also what is the actual usage,
Right.
you know, how
Correct.
often is a piece of equipment.
You know, a loader gets used a lot more than the excavator would sometimes, you know, that loader gets used all the time, or the fire trucks, they're moving all the time.
Yes.
Right.
I see them about every 15 minutes by my house.
Yeah, and I think maybe the perceptions from some of the public was, if department heads comment like, well, it's on the plan. So
Right.
it's
Yeah,
designated for
I
this year. It's on the plan. So the plan says, it needs to be renewed.
Yeah, and I'm not
Such and such a
criticizing what you
date,
guys are doing.
and
I'm
that
just,
needs to get done. So I think that's sort of where
Right.
all of those sort of comments came into play. So
Yep.
the planning board was looking for some guidance from the selectmen, to maybe mention that to department heads when it comes time to, start doing their CIP items, for you guys to recommend, keep in mind all of these other things that potentially
factors.
could,
That play.
right, that could come into play. Maybe they don't.
Maybe they don't, but.
and
it's-
maybe they
it's-
don't, but it's almost better
Yeah.
to be prepared for them if they do.
That's correct.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's where that,
Right, and I think the
that comes
department
from
heads that we have now are right on top of that stuff, so.
absolutely.
Because as far as the selectmen, I mean, we're at the mercy of our department heads. They're the ones that, that have to run these departments.
Yep.
And use the equipment. They know it a lot better than the selectmen do. So if we have these guidelines in play, that makes it much easier to make the decisions whether to pull the trigger in order to purchase and make these changes.
We're also debating on whether is it better to lease or buy? I mean, we have that option too. Sometimes it's just better just to lease big equipment.
In some cases, definitely.
Yes,
Well, I think where it falls under that thing is getting so hard to get anything. I don't know if you can keep
Another-
up with a
that's
lease.
another problem.
It's, you can't call a company and say, hey, I need an excavator. They're gonna say, well, you're 2 years out, sorry. Or I need a fire truck. Pat, how long, Pat, how long does it take to get a fire
I
truck?
know. Crazy.
There, it's
There you go.
720 days. So
I
it's,
think you're
it's,
thinking in terms of more of equipment that.
Right.
That is not used as often, obviously, and something that doesn't need to be replaced right away. Or something that can be used on a basis of just renting it and have a plan to get this rental equipment
Right.
6 months in advance.
Right.
Or 3
Right.
months in advance.
Right.
I
Our
honestly,
pieces of equipment, we can do that.
I
with.
honestly think as scary as it sounds, as we're coming into a time where you either buy it now or you don't buy it because you can't. You're not gonna, if you wait 2 extra
Yeah.
minutes, it's gone. Somebody else already bought it.
True. That's true.
Supply and demand.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
Right,
I
so,
don't see any light at the end of the.
It's,
No.
you're not seeing any. I think it's gonna get worse before it gets
It's gonna
better.
get worse before it gets better, for sure.
When I buy my first electric loader,
It's coming.
In our lifetime.
I just don't know where the power is coming from, electric. I'm like, I don't know.
yeah,
I'm like,
No, I know.
I know.
We're gonna be having some scary times coming.
yeah,
so Mr. Chair, I had one other comment.
absolutely.
So, as has been mentioned in the past, one of the biggest things that's missing off this plan is, money to put aside for, building improvements or new facilities and such. But with the, implementation of the new master plan coming up, there's been a lot of talk on that. So I feel like, next year, we can start implementing some of that.
And kudos to that, because
Absolutely,
I think there was a lot of time put into that too, that a lot of people didn't understand and they were looking at stuff and didn't really see the whole picture.
2 years.
Yeah, it's
2
huge,
years
it's huge.
of research.
But you guys
Yeah.
did a great job on that too. And that, if
Yeah.
you sit down and read it, it does make sense.
Oh, yeah.
It does, it does. Absolutely.
Job well done.
But this is
Looks great.
awesome information right here. And it's like you said, it's a tool to go off. It's something to work off.
Right, it's definitely a fluid document
Yeah.
year after year.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yep. Um,
Anybody have any questions for the ladies?
No, I think we covered a few of the issues or some of the things that we could add, for suggestions anyway.
No, I think it's another job well done for sure. You guys put a lot of time into
Great.
this and we appreciate it for sure.
So
I-
this will be, next meeting we'll have, so since this has come out, we've gone back through the warrant articles that are being drafted
Okay.
for everything to make sure that the warrant article requests are in conjunction with the approved plan. And then, of course, the board will, go through them and vote on them one at a time.
Okay.
But next meeting, you'll have warrant articles and, we'll be able to reference this document as well.
Okay.
See where that goes out.
Perfect.
All right, and if I may, I'd like to publicly thank the CIP committee. Without their dedication and hard work
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
volunteer hours, this definitely would have been much more difficult with just the planning board and myself
Oh,
and
God.
staff. So I really appreciate their assistance.
These committees do work and it makes a big difference. It's a big help and.
Yeah.
definitely
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Because
Very much.
it helps make decisions that are,
You gotta be thankful for.
yeah,
Absolutely.
All that committee.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
All right. Next appointment, Kristen Thomas, Parks and Rec Commission. I don't think she's here. No. All right.
I move we accept the application. Thomas. Rec Department,
All right.
Commission, excuse me.
Yeah. Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, new business, voting booth purchases.
It's me. So this was a conversation that Jen and I had when she was preparing for the general elections this year. As you can see, based on the information that was provided. So our voting booths are in excess of 40 years old. They've served their purpose in their life, but we're down,
That's impressive.
they're starting, yes, very impressive, but they're starting to fall apart. They're harder and harder to assemble. When, some of them have been taken out of service already, yet we're increasing in the number of voters, and by state law, we have to have a booth for every 100 voters. And as the number grows, we fall farther behind. Jen had originally come to me with a request and a quote. She said that we could get through with buying half. I will tell you, and half would work. But we did sit down, and in her budget right now and the way that things are moving forward, she does have the money. Just because there was personnel changes throughout the year that obviously left some money in the balance. And so she does have the funding to make the full purchase for the new booths based on that $12,000 or $12,400.
The 12,000.
I'm sorry.
No, I apologize, Paul. The 12,488.67, that's for all of them?
That's for all of them.
That's for all 10 and the curtains themselves, right?
Yes,
Including the curtains.
including the curtains.
Well, if we can get another 40 years out of them, I think we're okay.
How many were actually discontinued that we didn't use? this year? Do you have
She
any-
told me, just give me.
And how many do we actually have that we actually used?
So. All right, so currently we have 33 metal Douglas style voting booths.
Mhm.
1 Franklin, 4 voting booth pod. And 8 portable voting screens. So for actual booths, we only have 33. 33, and then we have the 4 pod.
Mhm.
Which, but the voting screens, those are the ones that they just set up on they almost look like the COVID screens
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
curtains on them.
Mhm.
So they're not as effective. They get you by, but they're not. as
So if we were to get these 10, we would continue to use those other ones or just.
Yes, we would
some of them?
continue.
'Cause
We
we're gonna
would-
be short.
We would supplement.
Mhm.
But see, well, no. The difference is with the 10, that what her request is for is 10, but they're the 4 booth voting pods.
Okay.
So we'd actually have, so on that last page,
What
you see
page
the
are you on?
picture?
40 of them.
We'd have 40 of them. So we would be able to replace all of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Okay, that's
And
what I was
we- and
gonna
we
ask.
wouldn't
You.
just-
That was my next
Yeah,
question. You had
the-
said 4-station,
Right.
4-station voting booth. So, okay.
Right. We would keep the other one, the other 4 booth, so that would get us 44.
Right.
And then I think what we would do is just sort out the ones that aren't serviceable anymore from the ones that we do and keep them as a
And
backup.
just replace.
Yeah.
And keep them as a backup, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, at this time, if she's got the money in there, I mean, I don't see this stuff getting any cheaper. The
No.
longer we wait and we use them, it's not like it's something that we're not gonna use.
No, if she has the
They're
extra money
voting
this
booths.
year, might as well,
The voting booths,
Get it
if we
done.
can, I mean, if we can.
because
do
she might
it,
not have the extra money. next year.
We may not have the extra
Exactly.
money to do it
I don't think
at
we
some
will.
other time, so.
And we're just trying to capitalize on those changes to shifts in departments and things like that, where the funding becomes available. So that we don't have to, try to incur new purchases in the following budget cycle.
We don't want to get to the point where we gotta hang trash bags up for people to vote,
Exactly.
so. I'm okay with it. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
Mr. Chairman, I move we purchase the 10 voting booths and curtains for a total price of $12,488.67.
I'll second that.
Any discussion at all, gentlemen? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Ryan.
you.
Again,
Thank you for the info.
we can vote with confidence again. All right, Solid Waste Department, 2022 Christmas holiday closure. Don't tell me you want to close a dump on Christmas, Doc. Come on.
The Grinch.
Yeah. Yeah. Gonna ruin everybody's day.
Yeah. But anyways, I put together a memo. There had been an email that had been circulated around through PW Net, which is a net that we use through the Public Works Group in the state. Trying to find out, and also through the solid waste group, the DES, trying to find out what people are doing because of the most solid waste facilities are open on the weekends. And where Christmas does fall on a Sunday, they were wondering about if there was any consideration being done by towns on the day before Christmas Eve for early closures, so that the, staff can travel or whatever, or have festivities in the afternoon and evening. So I put together this memo for consideration by the board to actually close the facility at 12 noon on Saturday, the day before Christmas. And then it would reopen on Monday, the day after Christmas,
26.
the 26th, which usually is a fairly heavy day, if in fact,
Mhm.
wait, depending on how the holiday falls, with cardboard and people bringing wrapping paper and all the stuff that either get replaced or otherwise.
I don't have any problem with that. These guys deserve to have a day off as well. It's not.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the closure of the solid waste facility at 12 noon on December 24th, 2022, and to reopen on Monday, December 26th, 2022.
Second.
For discussion,
Yep, go ahead.
I'd just like to make sure that we notify the public
Mhm.
because
Yep.
they're gonna be,
Oh, yeah.
it's a mess up there.
Oh, I know.
It is.
And I don't mean by just putting a sign up
Right.
at the facility itself, and we should be doing it in the newspaper.
Put it in the newspaper
And
and
maybe not once.
Yeah.
You know,
Post it in the
Because they're
lobby,
gonna be-
post it in the area.
We do social media pretty much.
Social
It's-
media.
Yeah.
Is the biggest group, yeah.
It'll be on Facebook.
But
Yeah, it'll-
blog.
it's probably
If
already
you,
on the-
if you post it,
Yeah.
It will be as soon as I go sit back down.
you'll be able to post that and
There's all-
post that early enough.
Oh,
where you
yeah.
can be able to put that each week
Right.
and post that like you normally have been doing, which you've been doing a fantastic
Yeah.
job with, by the
Yeah,
way.
thank you.
But
Yeah, I mean, matter of fact, I've already posted what you've already done tonight, on the Facebook page, and I'll go ahead and do that for the closure as well. And then we'll also put together we can put together, a bulletin there to be posted, up at town hall
Yep.
and just take the excerpt of this and get it
Absolutely.
out. So they can get that out, and Scotty will,
And normally
Get up
they'll
there.
put a sign up.
yeah,
Yep.
Scotty will put a sign up there as well.
Trying to make it easy for everybody.
You know what we can
it
do?
would have to be
You know what we can do?
notified, yes.
Put the message board out at the traffic circle.
Hey, good, well,
Why not?
yeah, wherever, I mean, wherever you think that.
I think
You're gonna
that's
get the
That's
best.
traffic
It's
circle.
a good
Put the Message
idea.
board out there,
Jeez.
coming through town, you know what I'm saying? The emergency message board?
Not a bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. that's a
yeah,
good
because
idea.
Why
I
not?
just thought of it. I mean.
Gold star for Ryan.
He's always trying to take one leg up
Just a
on
goal.
me, isn't he?
You know,
So thank you.
Questions, yeah,
Yes, sir.
all of them.
Yeah.
I think this.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott.
I call it.
You gotta call the vote.
Oh, we're gonna vote that. I'm sorry. I apologize. Get a little off track there. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That makes it official.
There it is.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Selectmen's report. Mr. Holt. Mr. Morse. Mr. LaRochelle.
Yes, the zoning amendment committee, as you heard with Jessica, met with the planning board on November 15th, 2022 for the review of the zoning amendments, there were 7. And the planning board, approved to move forward for a public hearing. And the master plan committee will be meeting, with the planning department for a workshop on November 20th, which is Tuesday at 6 p.m. 22, yeah, 22, sorry, yep, 22. That's it, thank you, because you were there.
Thank you.
All right. I have nothing at this time.
And today's the 20th. Or
Oh, boy.
the 19th. 21st. What day is? Yeah.
First.
I'm all confused, it's Monday.
Yeah, look in here, how many pages you got before I call this? I don't know. Might skip you tonight.
Might just skip you.
Town administrator report.
Just wanted to skip it.
I said I might just skip you.
Oh,
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I only have about 5 items.
Yeah.
So on the desk in front of you, you will have a letter, there's a letter from June McLaughlin. What this is in reference to is, she had come in and had a discussion with myself and Stacy about, last year, she's part of the Rotary Club and they wanted to hold a, bake sale up at the Pearson Road Community Center to benefit the senior center. The money all goes back into senior activities with the CAP program and things like that. For them to have a big sale, technically by policy, they would be required to pay the rental fee and get their own insurance. The insurance alone is $400. That was the quote. We do not have a tulip program anymore, which is what we used to refer people to. We no longer have that. Our insurance company doesn't offer it. So they have to seek out their own insurance without getting any help. Her request is that, being a member, I mean, they utilize the senior center anyways as the Rotary Club. That hosting a bake sale during the day there, a waiver on a separate binder. And to be able to hold the event under the town's insurance. My recommendation to the board would be that, given the totality of the circumstances, not to set precedents, but a bake sale at a facility that they already currently use, which we don't have special insurance for the Rotary Club to,
Okay.
that really
You don't
doesn't
really
pose a big risk to the town.
Right.
and where the money directly benefits town residents and the senior center itself. I would recommend that the board would go ahead and waive it for this scenario. It's just the $400 amount for the binder would null and void any profit that would be made from a bake sale.
Right, yeah, it wouldn't even be worth having it.
I can understand the situation. That is a policy. Again, should we be looking at the policy?
Well, a lot of our policies have an exemption for circumstances where the board can make an exemption. It doesn't necessarily specifically highlight what the exception is, because I think, again, every scenario is different. So you really have to look at the whole picture.
Case by case thing.
But the board, most every policy that we have in town allows for the Board of Selectmen to make an exception. And in this particular policy, especially, there are exceptions for nonprofits. There are exceptions for state, federal, and local agencies that want to utilize any of our facilities or exempt from all of this as well. So we do have some standard exemptions, but there are some other areas where the board can use their discretion in that situation. But I definitely think we need to look at the policy anyways, because there is a part of that policy that talks about the TULIP program, and it doesn't exist anymore.
That's not available.
Right, so that needs to be edited.
Because a lot of functions like this aren't real big profit makers. So
Right.
It's not like they make.
Right, by the time you pay the insurance, there's no
Yeah,
profit.
May as well
for it.
not even do it.
You might as well not do it.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't have a problem waiving it. I don't know about you gentlemen, but
I guess.
No, I think we're fine.
I think we're all right.
I think we're
As long
good.
as Don't have a problem with it. All right, do you need a motion on that, or is that I can?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. I'll make a motion that we waive the. Yeah,
The insurance.
the insurance requirement. I apologize.
Second.
All right,
I thought you were reading.
discussion.
No,
All those in favor?
I,
Aye. All right, thank you.
All right,
Thought there was more.
next thing to run by the board for consensus, last meeting, we spoke about the voting contract at St. Catherine Driscoll Church. We went through that, so I've spoken with the superintendent at the high school, and the high school is happy and to welcome us back for voting purposes at the school. We do have one superintendent now for Barnstead, Alton, and ACS altogether. So they have already opened the schools back up to voting in Barnstead, where they're closing the district to utilize that day for like teacher parent or conferences or a teacher workshop. So it wouldn't be a situation where we'd be voting with the school still open in session. I talked to Jen about it. You have to talk to Robin, the moderator, but I want to get the board's feeling on whether or not. So the scenario is we could, I mean, realistically, I don't really see any other building. I know we've explored any other possibilities of building big enough to house this and appropriate to house voting. So it basically feels to the, it goes to the board's preference on whether or not the situation, again, just to refresh your memory, is I can't think of Archdiocese. Yeah, the Archdiocese is requiring that anybody that utilizes one of their facilities throughout the US, not just in here locally, that you need to get a separate insurance binder for 400 or 450,000 through their insurance company. When our contract already requires us to get a bond from our insurance company, Primex, with them named as an
so you're paying twice for it.
We're actually
It's like double dipping.
yeah,
kinda.
we're paying twice, but the other thing is our policy has over $1 million worth of coverage. I think it's 2 million. They just want us to buy $400,000. So what that does is obviously, and that's per event. So that means next year it won't be so bad because we only have voting in March. But the following year, you got
When
the
you get
presidential
primary,
election, we got the primaries, we got everything.
Quite a few.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to pay. It's like, I think it roughly was quoted out at $400 per event. So that it's just a fee that we have never had to occur, and it really, we reached out, Laura and I reached out to Primex, to our casualty insurance rep, and they said, just to verify, everything's covered, there's no problem. See, our archdiocese was claiming that if something happened during one of our events, that the church, that the town couldn't be sued, and that only the church would be liable, which isn't true, because the town gets sued all the time for things like that. Most municipalities do. But in the case, and again, I verified this with Primex, is the reason we have that policy is to indemnify the location or the building holder for that event. So, but that's really the options that we have on the table right now. I just got to get on the schedule, because if we're going to do, because March is coming up, March is going to come quicker than anything.
Oh, yeah.
So if the board, the consensus of the board is that we want to move to the school, then that would be.
I guess my only question would be, is you have already got back in contact with the archdiocese about the insurance, and they still same way?
Yes.
And
they're just,
they won't agree to it the way it is?
no,
This is done by the, not just the.
no, the local,
The state.
the local,
Whatever.
Yes.
priest and office manager and stuff, they've already expressed that they don't want to do this.
Okay.
But
There's a higher power
there is a higher power.
calling the shots.
Mhm.
The Board of Selectmen by law are the ones that determine,
No,
the Board of Selectmen by law are the ones that determine where the election will be.
So we have it at your house.
I think so.
But we had this issue last year because of that old Warren article.
Yeah.
And in the process, we talked about the schools. The grammar school, no, can't do it. It's just not set up properly. But
the high school is though.
the high school is,
Yeah.
but they have to file with the state timeframe, and I forget what it is. If they have to close the school.
That's what I was.
All right, yes.
Do they have to
Yeah.
close it, or they?
Yeah, but the thing is that's only for voting though, not for town. That's for state voting. That's not for, that RSA doesn't apply for
Municipalities.
municipal, for town meeting. For town
If,
voting?
if they close the school, yes, it does. They have to get permission to close the school. That's what I was told.
Yeah, because when I talked to the superintendent, the only thing he said is, he said it would work out well because he has certain days he has to use for, because teachers have to have their continuing education. So he has days that, those are flexible. He can schedule them on certain days. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna utilize that throughout the school district at once.
Like the teachers
So it actually works
convention,
out,
he'll
yeah.
make that on the.
He'll
day
make
of
that,
voting.
he'll make it on that
So
day,
it's,
the same day.
it's closed by them, not us.
There are, I think what
Yeah.
you might be referring to is if you start going over those already allotted days, like the snow days and the consecutive days, then
Then
the
you have
Department of
permission.
Education gets involved in that, so.
I don't see a problem.
No, I think.
I like the school, but I like the school better anyway. It's, I think it's a
I've
little
had
more
people
convenient.
ask me about that.
Yeah.
Well, there have been few complaints that I've heard over there, simply because of the walkways that are sloped.
The reps.
To the building and the
Yeah.
ramps and ice and snow and slippery conditions. So
I think
maybe
something
at the high school might be a better idea.
which we should check in with, you know how that foyer is on the school? The road leading in circles right in. I believe we should be able to allow vehicles to go there and drop off handicapped people, elderlies.
That's, yeah.
so forth, because then it'd be a straight shot deal right into the building, I think.
Yeah, that's what we usually do in the past.
Yeah.
We set up, we actually have ramps that are already built to get up over the that are down in the basement. There's two of them. That fold out and they perfectly reach, they allow people in wheelchairs to get up over the curb. So that would work. It works out pretty well in that sense.
I'm all for it.
And just to make sure to what you had asked me about going back to them, if this is the board's consensus that we're gonna move that way, I'm gonna contact Father Cole personally to talk to him directly to see if there's if anything else has changed or anything else, but the last word I got from them was that they were paying the fee because the archdiocese
That's what it
had
sounded
not,
like.
had not
Right.
budged on it. So they were actually fronting the money, the church was, so that we could vote there.
Yeah.
And, you know, they want us, they wanted to
They
keep
can't
us
afford-
there.
They can't.
Yeah, they wanted to
Can't
keep
afford
us here, but they said basically they can't.
And when I
afford to
said,
do it.
I mean, I think it's,
We know.
no, but I think that's, I don't think it's our church so much.
No,
as
it's the
the
nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yeah.
thing.
It's the archdiocese. It's the whole diocese of the area.
And it's like anything else, there was an incident that occurred and I don't remember exactly where they said it came from, but it was not New Hampshire, it was out somewhere in the Midwest and there was an incident, they ended up in court and, you know, that's usually what prompts things like this,
Mhm.
changes like this, so. So with that consensus, I will move, like I said, to speak to Father Cole directly about that and if there's no other change in the circumstances, I will contact the superintendent for March's vote, March's town vote.
But that's something else that we'll have to get out and make sure everybody knows way ahead of time.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
We've done it before.
Oh, I know.
Notify, yes, we have.
At the Pearson Road, remember?
Yep. I do remember that.
So, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, so we had the vote the other night on Laura Lane. And there's been a few developments since that decision was made. So the vote that was taken by the board to accept Laura Lane was that we accept Laura Lane on the condition of the rubber chip ceiling in the spring. And there was talk about money in the escrow. Well, the problem was when we went back and looked at everything is I think they misunderstood what they had. It's not an escrow. There's no money in escrow. They have $300 for an offsite engineer review in an escrow. What the money is there's a performance bond, a maintenance bond on file. So they have a maintenance bond. This is where the money was coming from that they were talking about is there's a maintenance bond for $24,900 with Ohio Casualty Insurance Company. So I presented this to town council to find out what we were gonna do. He read the language because wasn't exactly familiar with a maintenance bond versus a performance bond. So basically what this is this is the security that the town holds for 1 year on acceptance. So I had council review it because I didn't know if we could, this would be typically on a bond, you would make claim on it if it was defective work or, you know, the work became faulty within that 1 year period or things like that. Wasn't sure based on this being a condition of acceptance, whether that would fall into something the town could pull off the bond. So town council said we could pull off this bond, we could do either or. But his suggestion and what I had sort of proposed was issuing a registered letter to the petitioner road, explaining to them that their money is not in escrow and that they have two choices, that either the town is going to file with Ohio Casualty Insurance for the amount of the quote, which the quote is only 13,608, not the 19 that was called, or they have the opportunity to bring that money in and put it into an escrow with the planning department. Because they have an escrow, like I said, but $300 is all that was ever in it.
So they would just transfer that to the escrow, so it would stay.
Right, if they brought that money in, it would stay just as the vote had occurred.
Yep.
And I will say the first snow event we had, Scott and I talked and we both agreed that we went and maintained Laura Lane because the vote was that we we're going to accept it. Everything else, I think that there's just a misunderstanding as to what that money represented, that it wasn't physical cash in an
Right.
escrow.
I got you.
The town could pull on, that it was actually a maintenance bond. So we're gonna, with, as long as the board's consensus is they're okay with that letter, we're gonna go ahead and issue that letter. We've already began drafting it. And that'll go out probably tomorrow.
I went up and took a ride up and saw that wall up there. It's impressive.
Yeah,
Good luck moving that baby.
And if,
I've seen it before.
if you folks, speaking of that, that was one of the other things I was going to mention, just because for informational purposes, if anyone you want to see before you left, Scott got an actual survey that
Okay.
shows,
I would love to see that.
yeah, that shows White Mountain Survey went out and sketched the right of way and where the walls fall.
It's, yeah, you can clearly see where the wall falls.
Yeah. So,
What is it, Scott? Is it 4 inches maybe from the?
4 or 8.
Yeah, it's not much more than that.
Much. Really?
But you definitely don't want to hit it.
No.
No,
That's a wall.
yeah, that's,
All
I'll
of,
tell you what, it's awful nice. It's gorgeous.
I know, I've seen it.
shame.
But, yeah,
It is what it is.
all right.
so the other thing I wanted to mention to the board tonight and see if be willing to take action on it is I talked with Laura today, and as you know, we had a lot of different open positions, people leaving. Employee retention has always been a struggle. So my recommendation to the board on in particularly with addressing the admin staff, the admin assistants throughout all the departments. We went through when we discussed it, and we did a reclassification last year. We went from $16.57 to $17. We didn't even go 50 cents. Since then, we've had 3 of those positions leave. We have 1 open that we have not. We got 2 applicants. 1 didn't return a phone call for an interview. And looking at that and giving our financial position with the operating budget right now and whatnot, my recommendation to the board is that we take those admin positions and bump them to the starting up $1 to $18 and not 17. Like I said, we reclassified, we were at I think we reclassified 43 cents.
I hate to say it, but I think it's almost time we start getting with the program. We ain't gonna have any employees that people are paying. And I mean, I had a class at my shop today, and half the talk was how everybody's stealing everybody's employees.
Yeah.
You know, what was it? How many people were there? 30? Yeah, and they're like, well, you know, you walk in and this guy's like, hey, what are you doing here? You used to work for us, now you. He's like, well, they offered me $4 more. It's real. It's not just somebody going, hey, it's happening.
We're all competing for the same employee pool.
And that's the problem.
And obviously,
They're gonna hold out.
and like with anything else, if you continue to train, we're wasting time and money with all this training.
And then sending them somewhere else.
Somewhere else where they're gonna pay them more money for that training. And really, this is obviously it's an attempt for retention, but also to invest in good, solid employees, stay and be here. And we all know that you start looking at every individual administrative assistant and executive assistants throughout. They're not just in there. They're not just in there filing paper or doing that. The level of they're what keeps the wheels moving all the time. And you know, that needs to be, it's a skill, that kind of multitasking and being able to keep those things running, and getting all that done, sorting it. So it's on a financial burden that we can't handle in the operating budget right now. I mean, we've already had shuffles. We're operating down positions, because that's really, when I say that, I don't want the general public or anybody else to think we have this windfall of money sitting around. But the thing is when you operate for 6 months without a position, you know, those wages are already there. You know, everything, it's already sitting in there. So that's why my recommendation to the board is that we make that move.
I don't think that's unreasonable. Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't know. And I'm speaking for me, but I can't afford to live off $18 an hour.
Yeah, but I don't know.
No, I want to hear what you got. I want to hear about.
Did a study.
Yep.
A comparison study in other towns. Not,
I have a copy of it. Yep.
not too long ago. And I thought we were pretty much on board. See, and we did make some adjustments
We did.
on that. Now, if, I don't know, I have a hard time believing $1 an hour is gonna make a big difference.
Now, I agree with you.
I'm not saying we should go $5 an hour.
Right.
What I'm saying is, I just, I'm not up on the times today, you know what I mean? I'm used to highway guys, $17 an hour was a top man.
Yeah, and that's when
And those days are gone.
Days gone forever.
And, you know, I just look at, we got a position that I'm very familiar with, town mechanic.
Yep.
Now this position demands a lot of skill today. And if you go out in the industry, in the automotive truck industry, private, what we're paying, I don't know why he's still here. But that's another issue. But I imagine we got the same problem in other areas.
Right.
Sure.
You're addressing it, you're coming up with it. And
But you are right.
yeah,
I mean, we did do the study and we're right up there with some of the other.
But I think that study's a couple years old now, and now the times have seriously changed.
Oh, no, and I agree.
But the other thing is we weren't, from what I saw, I wasn't part of that study, but I have a copy of it.
Mhm.
And when I went through it and talked about it, though, a lot of the recommendations were middle of the road.
Okay.
So it wasn't like you still had towns out there that were $3-4 higher than us, neighboring us.
Mhm.
But then you had some other ones that were lower, and then you're looking at some of those towns compared to Guilford, Wolfboro, things like that. There's probably smaller towns. It's hard to get apples to apples when you're looking at size and comparison.
Yes.
The problem is that when you do a study like that, you get a high and a low. So you don't actually know what they're making. You know what I mean? You don't actually know what, so they'll say, yeah, we start people out at $18 and they don't start somebody out at $18 an hour. That's what you're gonna get. So you don't go take their people. They give you an in the middle, like you said, like the middle of the road, but they'll say, well, our mechanic or our equipment operator makes $15 an hour. It starts at 15 and goes to 35. Well, they don't tell you what the actual number is. They just say it starts at 15 and goes to 35. Those days are over. Cause you can't, $17 an hour, an apartment down street here for a 1-bedroom that you can barely move in is $1,500. You know, we're not in the times when when $17 an hour would make it so you could
Takes
feed your
two
family. It takes two incomes
Takes
to
two
survive,
incomes to make it in just about anywhere.
which scares me because I think my kid's gonna live with me for the rest of his life.
so what's your
A lot of them are moving
recommendation
back.
again?
My recommendation is bumping it up to $18.
So
17.
17.
So when we first reclassified under that first one, we hit the middle of the road, like I said, it only moved it from $16.57 to $17. So it was like 43 cents. Which I'm not throwing that to the wind. I just at this threshold right now.
My question would be, by moving that, are we stepping on other toes?
Well, no, because normally what we do is when we shuffle, take a position, reclassify it by $1, we take that and apply it to the people that have already been here.
So everybody moves up.
Yes, so it's not, that's the intention, that when it gets reclassified, so then that way you don't have people walking in the entry door and then somebody that's been here
Making more
5
than if
years.
somebody's been here.
Yeah,
No,
because that's
I-
really gonna have the opposite effect of retention,
Yes, it does.
Yes.
so.
Well, then we also have the Kohler and the Merit coming up, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
That's after the first of the year, correct?
right, well, that's after budget approval,
Or budget approval.
because we do always run the risk, obviously, to go default, then there wouldn't be anything.
The thing is Kohler and Merit is something that you get after you've got a stabilized area where you're at.
No, what he was
That
talking,
goes-
he's talking about if you're stepping on anybody's toes,
Right.
That should be
Still
coming
have-
into
You,
effect.
you still have to adjust everything, or once, even when COLA gets there, that person that you just moved up $1, if you didn't move the other ones up, once you get COLA, well, now they moved up this much more than the other person. So you kind of, like Ryan's saying, you have to move everything up at the same time, just to keep everything in the spectacle of,
Snowballs.
yeah, exactly.
So we're just moving this one up, not everybody. Correct.
The whole position.
The
yeah,
line.
whole-
The
That position.
line, that position.
Sort of the line, so to speak. You're moving
Yeah,
everybody
okay.
on the line.
On that line, gotcha.
So almost every department has an administrative position.
Yep.
All the way, in each individual, you got planning, you got building, you got assessing.
Mhm.
The offices up here, the admin offices, finance and executive. Then you have. Water's got one that one's part-time, but it's still less hours, so it's a less impact. Yeah. Then fire, PD.
And our budget can handle that.
Yes.
Based on the absentees.
Yeah, based on each department has, not every department, but each department has vacancies that they've been struggling with throughout the year, which allows for the departments to have a little more flexibility to be able to cover that impact.
I'm just trying to, if we raise, I mean, I don't have any issue with these people making 11. I don't at all. But if we raise this position up $1, that means we raise every administrative position up $1.
See, and we got a budget we just approved
Right, that's the
That's
only
right.
thing,
with,
And that's where I'm going.
with
and we're okay for this section of the budget, but what happens next year when it's not
the
in there?
new budget and that,
Build, maintain. You gotta figure, when you look at all of it, Laura did the rough calculations. She's out, but we were talking on the phone. And it was a little less than, as you figure 80 hours
Right,
by $1, it's roughly 10 or 11 employees. So you're about 20 grand, 21 grand.
plus,
Part-time positions a little less.
plus
So
when it goes, when you go into next year, you're gonna have a little more
well, especially if you got all
Pay
those
increase.
employees back.
Gonna be the pay increase.
pay increases are gonna be on top of that. That's 6%.
It snowballs. There's a snowball effect. And the bottom line is, the employees definitely need to be compensated.
Yeah.
And people need to be compensated, but there's always the bottom line, looking at the taxpayer.
Right.
And I'm always concerned about the
Yeah,
taxpayers,
absolutely.
and I'm always concerned about where we go. And where we've already gone with the budget.
Sure.
And what we talked about.
I mean, we're having a hard time retaining help now.
I know.
What's gonna happen if,
But just to make it clear, I'm not asking for any money and I'm not asking for the budget change. I've already gone through the numbers. And my proposal to you is something that we can sustain within the existing.
within what's
Within-
already here?
Within this budget.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that. As long as.
I just didn't want you to think, because the bottom line is important, very important to
It always
taxpayers.
is. It
And
always is.
I just, while we have the ability to do it and the ability to sustain it.
And I'm with Paul on that. I don't want to see I think everybody, I don't want to see the taxpayers take a hit, but I also think our employees are our most important asset as well.
Of course, of course.
There's no
We
arguing
have-
that.
We have some damn good employees.
Yeah, and I think that the cost of $1 really isn't gonna,
The other thing I was looking at, and we talked about this last meeting, but we approved the preliminary tax rate. It went down a penny.
Yeah.
We don't have to offset the budget at all with the unassigned fund balance.
Right, that's
We
another
usually,
good thing.
Nope.
we're usually putting $500,000 to $700,000 at that, the unassigned fund balance out of this 2 warrant articles or the operating budget.
we don't have to, and
We
we
don't-
still drop the tax rate.
Exactly. So,
I think, and that's something
That's
that
something that can.
we should kind of be
Yeah.
happy about that, especially in the economy we're in.
Yep.
All right,
Well,
well, I guess we're gonna make a decision.
Our town administrator making a recommendation.
Yep.
Right. Yes. And you want to vote on that or you want a consensus?
I need to vote on
Need a
that.
vote.
Yeah, that's a vote.
I mean, not a. well,
Yeah, yeah.
It's a vote.
I get you.
Okay, I'll make a motion. That we accept the town administrator's recommendation, $1 an hour. For
Administrative line, right?
administrative.
For all the administrative positions. Administrative assistant position.
$1 an hour increase.
I'll second it for discussion. Well, like I said, my main concern is the taxpayers and the employees here, so I think where we asked our department heads to come together with budgets this year and keep them down, and they did. They showed up and they gave us, I mean, to drop the tax rate and what we have for a situation right now is not a bad thing. So, I mean, I think, and coming from the town administrator saying that we can absorb this into the budget without it going out to the taxpayers, I don't seem to have an issue with it, so. And anybody, I mean, you guys are obviously free to, however you guys wanna. We got good employees, we got good employees and I wanna keep them.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give our administration the tools to.
Yeah.
We gotta keep it rolling. We gotta have these positions filled. If it's gonna help, and you made a point, if the dollar's even gonna make a difference. I hope it does. And like I said, I'm concerned about our employees and getting the proper help that we need to keep the town running smoothly. And I'm also concerned with the taxpayer, but if we can absorb it this year without affecting our budget,
Right.
I'm for it.
And on the flip side of this is if we don't get any people to fill that position, I don't want to have come back here to this again and say, well, we need another $1 because we can't fill the position.
Right.
It's,
No, I get you.
so I guess, anything else?
Nope.
All right, all in favor?
I,
Right.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Didn't mean to put you on the hot seat, but
No. Good. Good.
that all you have?
That's all I got.
All right. Consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda for this evening, November 21st.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that at all? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that?
I was just gonna.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Public input.
Yeah.
Come on up. Good evening,
Hi,
Kelly.
gentlemen. Kelly Sullivan.
Wait.
About the raises, I do not envy your position sitting up here. I appreciate the time you guys put in. It's a hard spot to be in. We are definitely in unprecedented times. People need more, they require more money, but it's like a free for all.
Yeah.
I certainly think an administrative assistant deserves, or an executive assistant deserves a raise if we're giving everybody else a raise. I mean, a lot of times we all know they keep the ship rolling, right?
Mhm.
So I just say across the board, it's hard, right? You keep giving raises to retain. They come in, they jump ship. So like I said, I don't envy you guys. I know we're all just trying to do the best we can. And I just want to speak to the Rotary Club hosting the bake sale at the Pearson Road Community Center. And thank you for waiving that fee. It seems a little asinine to me, for lack of a better word. They did host it last year. Not only does it benefit the senior center directly, but all of those seniors look forward to it. It's like a day for them to come out and be involved. And so just that small thing means big things to other people. So just wanted to thank you for that. And again, thank you for your time. Happy
Thank you very
Thanksgiving.
much.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Come on up.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'll just take a couple minutes of your time. I attended last week's planning board meeting. Sorry, Patrick O'Brien, Fire Department. Attended last week's planning board meeting where they talked about CIP and this plan. There was a lot of great discussion, but there were also some concerns brought up. And unfortunately, I wasn't ready to speak to those that particular night. So I just wanted to kind of touch base on those. There was a lot of talk about replacing vehicles based on, age, condition, mileage, hours, that kind of thing. And I guess that's where we're probably not, 100% transparent on that, because it doesn't really come up until we say, hey, we need this vehicle. So we do annual preventative maintenance and inspections, obviously DOT required inspections, fire apparatus inspections annually. So we have a pretty good pulse on where our equipment is. We base our decisions on replacement based on that. While there is associations out there that kind of give you rough timelines on how long a truck should last, it's kind of all over the place because not everywhere is Alton, New Hampshire. Not everywhere covers 80 or 60 or so square miles with hills and that kind of thing. So it is just a little bit different. So we do use the data from these private associations as well as our own historical data because we've owned fire trucks for some time. So I wanted to just speak to that. There was some concern about a 20 versus a 25-year replacement cycle on apparatus. And since this plan has been developed in 2018, it has been 20 years. So it may have been some time in history labeled as 25. But at this point, it has always been planned on 20. Just to throw some rough numbers out there, I don't want to get totally into it, but these associations that suggest replacement cycles are anywhere from 15 to 30 years and anywhere in between, completely based on condition, right? And how you run it. So we basically landed at the 20 because it's right in the middle. And if we can extend a truck's lifespan, we do that. So it's important to note that we have a 1996 fire truck that we're still operating, and we continue to operate it because it's in good shape and it's serving the job it needs to serve. We haven't accelerated it on the plan because we don't need to. So it's important to note that. Our 2001 forestry, we actually did a soft refurb on that. So we replaced just the truck chassis aspect of it and kept the rear body of it and mounted it to a new chassis. So I again wanted to throw out some examples that we do our best. We appreciate the trust in the public and the responsibility and management of several $1 million worth of assets. So I just wanted to hit on those couple items. And also it was referenced that, our pickup truck was just being replaced because it was time. We did note several maintenance issues that we see coming down the road with that. So again, I just wanted to touch on some things. We absolutely do take all of those pieces into consideration when we suggest the replacement of a vehicle. And of course, this absolutely needs to be a two-way street and conversation. And we appreciate all the conversations you ask. The last thing that I'll bring up, and I guess this is more with my CIP hat on, and it was brought up at the planning board level, was when department heads request something to be placed on CIP, it's always kind of a question mark of, are the selectmen supporting this or are the selectmen approving this? And the planning board, the same thing. It's like, well, are the selectmen going to approve it? Well, we don't know. So it's just a thought. Maybe perhaps that form that they submit to CIP for having something approved, just having a selectman sign off on it. So that way there aren't so many questions around whether or not this asset should be on the plan. My 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, me again. Because Pat was up here, Kelly Sullivan. I did agree about the maintenance and the replacing of vehicles. I know that everybody thinks it can wait longer, things. I just agree with what Brock said earlier. Sometimes you can't wait. And I agree with every time I've been here in any video that I've watched, the fire department especially is extremely transparent in their needs and what they do and the way they facilitate their facility. So I'm not singling anybody out saying that they are not doing that. I'm just saying that the fire department does an extremely good job in doing that. And it just kind of tweaks me a little bit that it kind of seems to always come at them, like, because I know they have the big ticket items, but they're a fire department. that requires big ticket items, you know what I mean? I mean, what are you gonna do? There's really nothing you can do about that, right? Especially in today's day and age, though, with the vehicles, and we've all seen trying to purchase, whether it's a fire engine or a highway department truck or an piece of equipment. You may actually get more bang for your buck return, turning it in a little bit earlier than waiting. And I know there's always that play on numbers. I'm a business owner, so I'm very well about not going out and buying a new vehicle all the time or replacing all the time. But sometimes if you look into it, you can maybe save more money than putting money into that maintenance because you will get that back in your return. Just another thing that has come up more frequently, I think, in today's day and age. So just all things to keep in mind. And again, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Guess what?
No executive,
Nope, I don't think we have any.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Wasn't any discussion on that one.
No discussion. I didn't hear a bit of discussion on that. What do we?
Remember me? I met you several times. I think I've met
Yes.
most of you guys from time to time.
Yes.